Earthquake.gov, al.com, and Guardian.co have given us some important dates to start out with. On April 18, 1906, San Francisco experienced a 7.9 magnitude earthquake that doubled the massive citywide fire. They claimed over 3,000 lives. January 2010, Haiti experienced a 7.0 quake that took approximately 50,000 lives. And on March 11, 2011, Japan experienced a devastating 9.0 magnitude earthquake that also triggered a tsunami. This double catastrophe took more than 18,000 lives. Earthquakes happen every day, and although we may be used to them, we still need to be prepared. David Kelly of the LA Times has in an article entitled Coachella Valley's Quake Future is Dire, published August 10, 2007, that sandwiched between the powerful San Andreas and San Jacinto faults, the Coachella Valley could be the epicenter of the most devastating earthquake our country has seen, and one that is already 300 years overdue. So, although we don't have to worry about a tsunami or huge buildings toppling down over us, we still have a lot to worry about. Lucy Jones, a seismologist at the U.S. Geological Survey and member of the California Seismic Safety Commission, said in the same article that a 7.8 magnitude earthquake would strike the Salton Sea. She predicts the shaking would last over 100 seconds, kill thousands, destroy homes, collapse the I-10 and I-15 freeways, ignite petroleum pipelines, and leave potentially thousands homeless in searing desert heat. We experience a lot of earthquakes here, but it only takes one to devastate all that we haven't known. Earthquakes in California are inevitable, and it's imperative that we take specific precautions to limit the overall devastation. First, I'll tell you what earthquakes are, what the big one is, then I'll explain why we don't care as much as we should, and what a big earthquake would do to us. And finally, I will explain how we should prepare for the big one. I'll begin by telling you a little bit about earthquakes. Living in California, small earthquakes happen all the time, but unfortunately, the big one is long overdue. So what are earthquakes and what do they do? NASA.gov defines earthquakes as the Earth's natural means of releasing stress. When the Earth's plates move against each other, stress is put on the lithosphere. And when the lithosphere breaks or shifts, when the stress is great enough, the lithosphere breaks or shifts, causing the shaking and rolling motions that earthquakes are known for. To give a little better example of what earthquakes do, let's think about it like this. If you were to apply pressure to a pencil on both ends, it bends in the middle, right? If you apply enough pressure, it breaks, releasing all the stress that you put on it. The Earth's crust acts the same way. When enough stress is put on it, when a force large enough, the crust is forced to break. When the break occurs, the stress is released as energy, which moves through the Earth in the form of waves. These are what we feel and refer to as earthquakes. The big one, according to Scholastic.com, is a name that scientists have given to a severe earthquake expected to hit California in the next 30 years. In an article entitled Earthquake Experts See the Big One Getting Bigger, published October 10, 2010, R.G. Lin of the LA Times, recent research showing that a section of the San Andreas Fault is long overdue for a major earthquake has some scientists saying that the southern portion of the fault is capable of magnitude 8.1 earthquake. The last big one ripped through Fort Tejon in Southern California in 1857. This 1857 quake was a magnitude 7.9. Thomas Jordan, director of the Southern California Earthquake Center, says that a magnitude 8.1 wall-to-wall quake would release twice the amount of energy that 1857 temblor did. Now, how much worse would it be if a quake were to strike the Coachella Valley, and it was twice as powerful as the last big one that hit us, in places more populated with people, buildings, and is already cut off from the rest of the world? So, now you know what earthquakes are, what they do, how devastating the big one could be. Let's talk about the dangers that they pose. Because we live in California, most of us are familiar with earthquakes, and most of us aren't as frightened of them as others are, and we tend to forget the dangers that they pose. Having most of us lived here our entire lives, we become numb to the inherent dangers of earthquakes. Another reason most of us don't worry about earthquakes as much as people who have not experienced a lot is that we, in the Coachella Valley, feel that we live in a safer place. There are no tall buildings or heavily populated cities. Our mountains are not moist, nor are there a lot of steep slopes, so there probably won't be any landslides. And being a desert, all chances of floods are gone, basically. The website, thinkquest.org, says in an article entitled Earthquake Damage, that the shaking of the earth is sometimes not the greatest disaster. It is the ensuing fires, floods, and other natural disasters that cause most of the damage. So, the big one could do a lot of damage to our suburban desert homes. And we may not have to worry about tall buildings, floods, or tsunamis. But what about the one and only way to get into and out of the valley? The I-10 freeway could suffer major damage. In an article out of KSPS Local News written by Eddie Pizzata on March 11, 2011, David Oglesby says that crucial pathways are cut off. So we should expect that overpasses may go down, destroying freeways, cutting off freeways, and we should expect that water lines can be cut, and we can expect that gas lines may be cut. This means that no one will be able to get in or out of our valley. A big earthquake could shake and shift the ground hard enough to break gas and water lines as well. This means that there will be no running water immediately after a quake, which can be bad for multiple reasons. First, it means that there's going to be no drinking water. Second, no running water just in case for firefighters, just in case there are fires due to the gas lines breaking. And third, no water means no showers. Bad hygiene mixed with cuts, scrapes, and other injuries could cause them to be fatal. Paul Chapman of The Telegraph published an article June 13, 2011, entitled "Thousands Without Power After Christchurch Hit by Earthquakes." Chapman goes on to say that 20,000 householders would be without power for days. This means that they would have no heat and almost freezing winter nights, and that the refrigerators and freezers wouldn't work as well because there's no power. And if the power's up for long enough, that means that they wouldn't have any food. So, a lot can happen after a big earthquake, and we need to be prepared. So, a lot could happen if the big one were to hit our valley. So how should we prepare? First, make a kit. They're not hard to make and they can save lives. SFGate.com says that experts recommend that you make 3 identical kits. One for your house, one for your car, and one for your work. That case, you'll have one no matter what. And Ready.gov has given us a great list of recommended items for emergency kit as well, which I've taken the liberty of printing out for you, and I'll pass out right after this speech. Next, make a plan. Make a plan with your family or roommates. Most likely, if an earthquake happens during the day, everyone's going to be in classes or school or at work. So develop a plan on where to reunite after the quake. And lastly, react properly. React properly and safely during and after the quake. During the quake, find a secure place in your home. Unless outside already, just duck, cover, and hold. FEMA.gov says the most dangerous thing that you can do is to try to run out of a building when there's a quake, because things can fall and hit you. So right after the quake, make sure everyone is okay. Check for gas and water leaks, and check for electrical problems. If anything is broken, turn them off. So, to sum up the information I've given you today, now you know what earthquakes are, what the big one is, and how they affect us personally and as a society. What we should do to prepare, and how we should act during and after an earthquake. Although there is nothing we can do to prevent an earthquake from happening, we can definitely prepare to limit the overall devastation by a vast amount. As Californians, we may not have to worry about earthquakes as much as we should, but we need to. Worrying is the only thing that will get us to prepare. And worrying can save our lives. And hopefully, the information I've given you today is enough to persuade you to prepare yourselves and your family. So, preparing for an earthquake does not take a lot of effort. But living through an earthquake without being prepared can cost you a lot more than just a simple kit and plan.